Sweet lullaby hums filled their horse-drawn carriage under moonlight. Esmeralda used little effort to rock her newborn child, the dirt trail doing most of the work for her, caressing his squishy cheek with a tender smile and touch while watching him return her gaze with heavy eyes threatening to shut. She spoke gently, yet with excitement gleaming on her face. A head full of hair matted black, just like your father, skin of light wood brown to match, perhaps a shade lighter. Marcellus was watching the trees pass by, toying with the end of his thick mustache and rubbing it down to his soul patch, a sign of his deep thoughts and worry. For a moment all that he was pondering faded away as he accepted the welcome distraction, turning his gaze away from the window. He smiled at the interaction beside him, the moonlight illuminating mother and child that adds to fill his voice with humorous glee. I'm surprised even this much resembles me, given the 5 years you carry him. Marcellus let out a chuckle that was matched by Esmeralda's own. Marcellus brushed his fingers gently through their son's hair, revealing strands of emerald scattered amongst the black. The color resembling Esmeralda's own long emerald hair that flows like a river with slight curls from the top, down to the middle of her back, grinning her hushed excitement. It was worth every moment. He felt my will and surpassed it with one far greater. Merelda, my love, sharing adoring eyes such as yours, there's not a doubt he will be a force to be reckoned with. Esmeralda's smile couldn't help but to grow a little grander with the feeling of pride, sharing a moment of silence as they both gaze upon their child. His emerald eyes lightly fogged of blood-red staring at his parents with a new-found fascination, looking up into his mother's own foggy eyes of emerald, but with white. Then over to his father's bloody dirt brown ones that gleams of red from the moonlight. Esmeralda's eyes quickly got watery until they could no longer hold the tear from sliding down her medium sandy skin. Marcellus didn't hesitate to caress her cheek to tenderly wipe it away. Esmeralda's voice stuttering under the weight of their reality. Thank you, Marcel. As their smile was slowly fading, in unison they look up to the empty seats in front of them. After moments passed, a look of contentment covered their faces, looking at one another with the sense of purpose. With newfound confidence, Esmeralda spoke first. Are you ready, lover? Right behind you, my love, as always. Marcellus replied without hesitation, with a grin of confidence and a look of certainty. Esmeralda made sure to tuck in their baby tight within the blanket, pushing a note in between the folds along with a magical black, emerald, and ruby pattern-beaded necklace. Weaving a spell of emerald light with her fingers that sprinkling over the child, dampening all noise other than her own as she begins to hum once more. Marcellus used his hand to comb back his slightly straight curly hair that fell down to his shoulders. Then he kicked the door to the carriage wide open. Following through with a fluid motion, he dashed out, don in his lavish attire, his clothes lightly padded and armored, a metal plate for his chest peering out from underneath his shirt, reflecting the moonlight that adds to his graceful entrance to the fresh night air of the forest. With one hand pulling out an energy pistol and the other donning his sword. A second later, several small explosions knocking down the approaching trees in front of the first carriage, forcing the horses to neigh excessively and immediately stopping their march, startling the driver, the mostly heavily armored guard beside him, and passengers alike down to the carriage that followed. In the mix of the guards' and passengers' surprise, Marcellus' body pulsed with mana. Blue energy from within expanded out to coat his body, some of the energy draining into the handles of his weapons when they reach, causing the edge of the sword to start glowing a light blue, growing brighter with more energy that drained. Afterwards, Marcellus began firing his energy pistol through the underbush, a beam of light with each trigger pulled. The first shot that disappeared in the tree line, eliciting a cry of pain, as hooded figures with black cloaks begin rushing out with weapons of their own, all of which now glowing with red energy. The mostly heavily armored guards quickly hopped down and got out of the two stylized green and red carriages, along with the passengers, who had lavish, lightly armored clothing as well. All was prepared for a fight. With skilled proficiency immediately, everyone coated their body with their mana, donning energy weapons of their own just in time to meet their assailants. Just as quickly they realized their fate. Their assailants continued coming, outnumbering them easily 1 to 15 within moments, half of which coating their own body in red. Yet no one wavered at this revelation. As shots began firing, Esmeralda launched at full speed from inside the carriage into the tree lines. Without a moment to waste, Marcellus swiftly finishing his current assailant with a slice of precision. Removing their head and immediately followed behind Esmeralda as well as all the others, friend and foe alike, and all without a word shared amongst them. With a blur to the normal eye, they all ran through the forest as fast as they could, all the while striking each other, dodging just as many trees and bushes as weapons and energy rounds. Red and blue lights illuminating the darkness underneath dense tree coverage, with the smashing and sizzling sounds of energy weapons colliding against energy shields, barriers, and flesh alike. The forest was all but silent, a few trees being igniting as stray rounds and strikes collide as the chaotic battle raged on. Marcellus, his guards, and other passengers focusing their attack on anyone who could run faster than them, doing all they could to buy time, all the while taking one injury after another. Quickly it takes its toll. One by one they started to fall. 7 by 7, so too did their enemy. Esmeralda never looked back, no matter how quiet it got, no matter how the tears in her pants and shirt turned into many arrows and daggers piercing her body. She never slowed down and never stopped humming a sweet melody with a tight smile. Unlike the others, Esmeralda focused her energy on speed and protecting their child, happily accepting anything not immediately lethal. As time pressed on, Esmeralda finally saw what she was looking for, their meeting point in the clearing. Not letting it distract from the danger, she continued dodging strikes from up close and afar, pressing forward till she finally jumped into the clearing, passing through an invisible barrier that begins to light up as all of the closely followed assailants smash into it like a brick wall, as well as their attacks bouncing off. The ones that survived the full-speed collision started shaking off the sudden impact. The assailants start striking the barrier, this time intentionally, with small cracks already forming. A wave of exhaustion crashing over Esmeralda with her goal near. Her steps slowed faster than she intended, sending her crashing, sliding across the grass near the center. With a heavy breath, she began adjusting her eyes from the moonlight that was shining slightly brighter than normal directly into the clearing, seeing a simple shrine, but a shrine no less, directly in the middle. A sturdy 4-foot tree, with a big, thick wooden bowl resting firmly on top. A moat of water surrounding the stone platform in the middle. Once again, with the odds against you, you've made it. A familiar angelic voice to Esmeralda's ear, keeping her tight smile and slow hums flowing sweetly between her heavy breaths. Slowly rising to her feet to meet the face of the familiar voice. The lack of energy softening her smile, allowing drools of blood to trickle down from the corners of her lips, eyes growing heavier by the second. Before meeting the familiar face, she suddenly turns left with wide eyes. Her humming ceased just as quickly. 2 dark figures were standing there motionless, cloaked in darkness that slowly flowed off like hair submerged in water. Following the gesture of one, she turns her head to the right. After moments passed, a look of contentment covered her face. Is everything okay? A sound of concern growing in the familiar man's tone, looking in both directions to find nothing to explain her reaction. Esmeralda finally meeting his angelic gaze. An angel, form too hazy and bright for Esmeralda to see beyond the thin layer of shimmering light radiating off him due to her weakened state. Only enough for her to not mistake who's before her. Esmeralda gulped down the mouthful of blood. Even while standing as tall as she could, she still needed to lean on the shrine so as not to fall. Gently lowering her child down onto the offering platform, without a drop of blood or a speck of dirt on him. With a cheerful, certain tone she spoke quietly and clearly. "Everything is fine, Mikala. I will make sure he goes somewhere safe." Mikala spoke with a gentle grace, filled with all the sincerity he had. They each offered warm smiles as the angel placed his hands over the water. The water began shimmering with blue light as the baby's eyes opened, taking in the full sight of the big blue moon. "I know," Esmeralda said confidently, slowly giving in to all her injuries and exhaustion, using the last of her magical energy to mimic her and Marcellus's voice, emerald green light flowing towards their child and entering his head. In his mind, he heard and felt all the love being poured into her words when she said, "We love you, eyes," before collapsing back down onto the grass and losing the connection. Soon glancing over to the tree line to see what's the commotion, only to find Marcellus entering the barrier, barely clinging to life. Countless wounds from head to toe, impaled with arrows, daggers, swords, and other assortments of weapons embedded into his flesh. Missing his left eye and left arm, Marcellus was more red than any other colour, crashing forward, sliding across the grass near the centre. Without hesitation, he started to crawl. Esmeralda began doing the same, only stopping as they noticed the water in the shrine grow brighter before flashing blue light. They watched the disappearing of their son along with the angel. After the moment of silence, each smiling to their eyes, which were filled with sorrow and love after some success from what they sought out to do, Esmeralda turned her gaze back to Marcellus. Seeing behind him half of the barrier is cracked, knowing it won't hold for much longer. Marcellus turning his gaze back to Esmeralda. Seeing two dark figures were standing off to the side, motionless, cloaked in darkness that slowly flowed off like hair submerged in water. Following the gesture of one, he turns his head to the right. After moments passed, a look of contentment covered his face. Slowly they crawled until their arms were wrapped around each other once more. Esmeralda, lying on top, nuzzled into his neck, spoken through hushed glee. "I told. Then, no need to hold on." Esmeralda and Marcellus tightened their grip for one last embrace, feeling the other's breath growing more shallow by the second. Esmeralda's voice soft, peaceful, and pleasant to the ear. "Are you coming, lover? Right behind you, my love." Marcellus spoke with a similar peaceful, loving tone before they both whispered in unison, "As always." As Esmeralda drew her last breath, it was shortly followed by Marcellus. The two dark figures glanced at each other before turning around and walking away as they faded. The barrier collapsed, and the rest of the assailants rushed in, immediately destroying the shrine. Before they could collect the bodies, a horn signaled across the forest, making every assailant stop in their tracks before quickly fleeing the scene. Somewhere across the land, in front of a church farmhouse, a baby appeared in a flash of light. The next second, the door slowly opened to a woman with flowy blonde hair to their jawline, fair skin and kind blue eyes. With a slight southern accent, she spoke sweetly and concernedly. "Oh dear, so you're the one I was expecting? I knew you would be young, but not newly born. You poor thing." Gracefully she crouched down to gently scoop up the baby, seeing the tucked note and beaded necklace. She took it out, reading the note that revealed the child's full name, date of birth, some additional information before instructions to burn it after reading. "Nice to meet you, Eziorik. Welcome to your new home. My name is Sister Mary.